Bro, I am shot. Shot. I didn't even want to make a video tonight. I just played in a golf tournament today, and I am like absolutely wore the fuck out, okay? But I feel strongly about this, and I want to talk about this, because everybody keeps saying Larry Bird is not top 10. And I want to talk about it, because I'm kind of tired of just the Larry Bird disrespect as a whole, okay? I think I've made a video about this before, but I'm going to present my case here. I'm going to use arguments that people don't like. I'm going to use hypotheticals. I'm going to use logic. I'm going to talk about all kinds of shit that people don't like, okay? But here's the thing. I don't necessarily disagree with the take that Larry Bird is not top 10 all time, because I think he's already kind of like knocked off the list, okay? Like if we're going with my top 10, it's like Michael Jordan, LeBron, like this is in no particular order, but like Michael Jordan, LeBron, Kobe, Tim Duncan, Shaq, Stephen Curry, Magic Johnson, Kareem, Bill Russell, and I don't know, Larry could be 10, or even like there's some people put Hakeem Olajuwon in there. Wilt Chamberlain's another guy that could go there. Like if you ask me, Larry Bird's definitely in like the top 13 or top 15. Top 10, I feel like he's been inched out or will be inched out at some point by other people. But my problem with the Larry Bird take is that people just seem to think like he's fucking terrible. You know, there was a huge argument to be made about his playoff numbers, about how he sucked at shooting threes and stuff like that during the playoffs, and how, like, he's not a top 10 career shooter, he's not this, he's not that. Listen, man, Larry Bird might be the coldest fucking white boy to ever play in the NBA ever, okay? I know there's people going to say, Luka Doncic this, and fucking, Pete Maravich that, and all this other shit. Like, listen, man. The problem I have with most of these arguments is they come from places where people compare Larry Bird to, like, the people that play in the NBA today. It's like for example, back when Mad Dog made the comparison of, like, Chris Paul versus Bob Cousy, I just think it's an unfair comparison. Like, yeah, you can say that Bob Cousy has more accolades than Chris Paul, but if Chris Paul and Bob Cousy were to play one-on-one, Chris Paul would beat him straight up. Like, Bob Cousy would be lucky to score a fucking point. Okay? Like, and I know that sounds disrespectful, but it's just the way it is, okay? Basketball has evolved a lot since the fucking 50s. But the fact of the matter is, like, for the 50s, Bob Cousy was the best point guard in the fucking NBA. Okay? For the 50s and the 60s, like, there's a legitimate argument to be made that Bob Cousy, at that time, was the best point guard in the fucking NBA. And for that reason, we give him his flowers, okay? Because of the era he played in. You can say what you want. He played fucking segregation ball. He played this. He played that. I don't give a fuck, okay? I don't care. History says that he was the best point guard of his era. But point blank, end of fucking discussion. Okay? Like, there's an argument to be made for guys like Jerry West and Oscar Robertson, but they came after the 50s. Okay? They came after Bob Cousy was done fucking everyone up. Okay? So, for the 50s, I give Bob Cousy his flowers. Do I put him in my top 10 point guards of all time? No, because the bar has been raised. But still, I have to acknowledge the idea that the guy's fucking accolades are fucking ridiculous for the time he played. I get he played with Bill Russell and all this other shit, but it's just the idea, like, he was an instrumental part of the Boston Celtics winning all those championships, whether you want to fucking admit it or not, okay? And this is my problem with the NBA community, the idea that people say context matters, but then they say things that, like, context matters, but then hypotheticals don't matter. And I think to myself, well, if hypotheticals don't matter, then why do we apply them to guys like Michael Jordan? Why do we apply them to guys like LeBron James? Like, why is it okay that we can apply hypotheticals to those guys when people do it, but when we do it to guys like who played back in the fucking 50s or in the 80s or in the 70s or somebody who's just not a popular player, suddenly it's a fucking problem, okay? That's my problem with this whole argument. People say context matters, but then say things that hypotheticals don't matter, which doesn't really make sense, because if you're applying context to any situation, you are probably going to end up in hypotheticals in some way, shape, or form, okay? Like, for example, I remember years ago people used to make this argument, who's the greatest small forward of all time? Like, back in 2013, 2014, when LeBron joined the Miami Heat, there was a legitimate argument that people were going around making, Skip Bayless and all these other guys saying, who would you take at small forward in your all-time starting five? LeBron James or Larry Bird? And there was people who would legitimately take Larry Bird, and I understand why, okay? Because Larry Bird was one of the coldest motherfuckers to ever play the game as far as a winner goes. And my problem with the whole thing is people don't apply context to this. People ignore the fact that the idea that Larry Bird had to play 4 years of college before he was able to enter the NBA. The man entered the NBA at 23 and exited at 35. He played 13 seasons in the NBA, and the only fucking year that Larry Bird didn't make an all-star team was the year that he had the back injury and only played 6 games. Okay, then when like people make these comparisons, I'm like, LeBron was able to enter the NBA at 18 years old. He's in what, his 19th or 20th season or some crazy shit like that. Larry Bird played 12 seasons, made the played 13 seasons if you want to count the season with 6 games. Okay, he played 13 seasons, was a 12-time All-Star. The man made a fucking All-Star team literally every fucking year except for the 1 year he didn't have a back injury. He was an All-NBA player 10 of those seasons. He was an all-defensive team twice, was a league MVP 3 times, was a finals MVP twice, was an All-Star game MVP, was a rookie of the year, was a 3-time NBA champion. I just think to myself, man, do people not understand how impressive it is? The idea that this man not only got drafted as a rookie and basically turned around the worst fucking, I don't think there's ever been a player who's impacted a team's win-loss record more than Steve Nash and Larry Bird. As far as turning a team around like that. Okay? Larry Bird went to the Celtics and immediately they went from one of the shittiest teams in the NBA to one of at the very least a middle of the pack team. Did they make the playoffs in Larry Bird's first year? Now I'm just curious, okay? Because Larry Bird, people shit on his three-point numbers but fail to realize the three-point shot was literally implemented his rookie year. And the idea, the amount of games that he played, 82 games his first year, 82 games his second year, 77 games his third year, 79 games his fourth. Players simply don't play this many games anymore. You know what I'm saying? If you get a player to play 65 games for you these days, it is a fucking miracle, okay? When you look at how many years this man played 70-plus games, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 of his 13 seasons, this man played 75 games or more. 11 of them, he played 60 or more. So, when I see people make these arguments, I just think to myself, right, how is it possible that people just the disrespect is insane to me, man? Yeah, the man, he was his rookie year, the fucking Celtics went from one of the worst teams to 61-21. They finished first in the fucking Atlantic Division. How do people seriously make the argument that Larry Bird is just not a good basketball player? People come out here and say, oh, well, I get it. I understand why people may, oh, he's white. He's this. He's that. And I just think to myself, man, do you not understand if Larry Bird never got injured, there's a legitimate, argument to be made, we're going to get into hypotheticals here, that he would have won, probably 4, 5 league MVPs. He won 3 NBA championships. Probably would have won 4 or 5 NBA championships. Had he never gotten injured and was able to enter the NBA at 18, a guy like LeBron James could have, this wouldn't even be a debate. People would not be debating about this. Same thing with Michael Jordan. People compare Michael Jordan to LeBron James, but fail to realize Michael Jordan went through the same shit. Michael Jordan was another guy who I think entered the NBA at, 23? Michael Jordan. When did Michael Jordan enter the NBA? At 21. Okay? So, already LeBron has a 3-year jump on a guy like Michael Jordan. And by the way, speaking of Michael Jordan, when we look at Larry Bird's stats, all time, okay? Out of the 34 times that Michael Jordan played against Larry Bird, Out of the 28 regular season games they played, Larry Bird's team won 17 of them. In the playoffs, Michael Jordan has literally never beaten Larry Bird. Never. Fucking never. 6-0. Larry Bird's team has never lost to the Chicago Bulls. Now, I understand that's more of a team thing. Like, I get that. But nobody was happier to see Larry Bird retire than Michael Jeffrey Jordan. So when I see people come out here and make these arguments, okay, that Larry Bird, there's just not a cold chance in hell that he should be in the top 10, like, I get it. There's, at this point, like, he's probably not a top 10 player. Like, I'm just going to call it what it is. He's probably not. Can we focus again? Thank you. But, do you realize how long it took to get him off that list? Like, I'm going to be honest, Larry Bird right now in most people's top 10 is probably 10 or 11. Alright, like, I'm just gonna call it what it is. Like, I think I even put Larry Bird at 10 on my list. I think it was like 10 or 11 in the list I did not too long ago. But, like, I absolutely hate people who say context matters, but then will completely ignore hypotheticals, when context are pretty much completely made up of hypotheticals. So, all I'm saying is, I understand Larry Bird is like 10 on the all-time top 10 list, or maybe even 11 or 12, depending on who you ask. But it's just the idea, like, people are putting Hakeem Olajuwon ahead of Larry Bird. And I'm like, Hakeem Olajuwon? Like, don't get me wrong, Hakeem was great, but he doesn't have the hardware. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just like, to me, I just think to myself, like, Hakeem was a great player, but, like, Larry, like, he didn't, like, yes, Hakeem Olajuwon impacted winning a lot, but Larry Bird took literally the worst team in the fucking league as a rookie at 23 years old and made them a 61-win team. And we're going to sit around here and act like he's not an impactful player. We're going to sit around and act like he was fucking terrible. Oh, he wasn't a good shooter. He wasn't this. He wasn't that. Like, can we just show some respect? Can we show some respect to one of the greatest players to ever play the fucking game? I am so tired of this worn-out bullshit that people come, oh, he was playing against plumbers and electricians, and he was playing against firemen, and playing against this, and playing against that. I don't give a fuck if he was playing the milkman, okay? Larry Bird was telling people he was going to hit game winners over them and fucking doing it. Like, who does that? Who tells a player that's like, hey, they're gonna inbound the ball, and I'm gonna catch it in the corner, and I'm going to shoot it over you and make it, and actually fucking do it and win the game? Like, I mean, the guy was one of the greatest trash talkers of all time as well. Do you realize how hard it is to come out and tell somebody, I'm gonna cook your ass for a game winner, and tell them exactly what you're gonna do, and then you fucking do it? Like, it's just the idea, like, I've never heard of stories like that. Not in today's modern NBA. I have never heard of anything like that. I mean, we've witnessed things like that, like with Jimmy Butler occasionally, but, like, it's just the idea, like, as far as, like, a guy just getting fucking cooked because they were running their mouths. But, I mean, it's just the idea, man, just give the guy his flowers. Can we do that? Can we do that? Is that a hard concept for people? Is this some comprehensive fucking burden? Like, that's my problem with people comparing eras, is the idea that people like to compare guys who can enter the NBA now at like 18, 19 years old to guys who had to spend 4 years in college just to touch an NBA court back in the day. And I think to myself, like, what an unfair, like, that alone already puts them at a disadvantage, and they were still some of the baddest motherfuckers to ever play the game. So, you could make this case for Pete Maravich, you could make this case for, like, literally anybody who played in the fucking 80s. Okay? The idea that they had to go through college. They had to do 4 years of college just to get into the NBA. Where nowadays, there was a time where you could come right out of high school. There was a time you only had to do 1 year of college now. Now they're saying they're going to remove that. Now you can just go play in the fucking G League, Ignite League, and all this. Like, there's so, like, it's an unfair comparison to make. And yes, I'm not saying Larry Bird is bona fide top 10. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying hypothetically, if we're gonna go there and apply context to a situation, the only reason Larry Bird is not in people's top 10 list is because of back injuries and how late he entered the NBA. The man played from 23 years old until he was 35. The man played till he couldn't even fucking move anymore. You know what I'm saying? And it's just like, and it was still, he's still, after the back injury, still managed to be a fucking all-star. Like, I don't understand this, man. I don't understand people who come out and make these arguments, because it's all people who are ill-informed. I'm sorry, but that's what it is. It's all people who are ill-informed. It's all people who want to go out there and compare their Kevin Durant's and their LeBron Jameses and their fucking Luka Doncic and their Stephen Curry to motherfuckers who played, what, 30, 40 fucking years ago? I mean, it just, to me, it's a stupid argument to make. I get it, yes, like, I understand, like, especially when you're gonna make these lists. This is the other thing that irritates me the most, is people will come out here and make a top 50 list or a top 75 list and apply context to certain players and then not apply context to others. They're like, oh, well, you know, had Hakeem Olajuwon, you know, did this or that, you know, had Hakeem Olajuwon ran into Michael Jordan, or had Shaq, or Michael Jordan not ran into Shaq, or had, like, just, can we just do it fairly? It just, to me, I don't get it. I feel like everybody has their own narrative about every NBA player, and instead of looking at it realistically, they come out and just say mindless, stupid shit like, oh, Larry Bird was horrible, Larry Bird wasn't a good basketball player. Bro, Larry Bird was, like, arguably one of the best players to ever play in the fucking NBA, okay? But, like, the NBA would not be what it is now if Larry Bird was never a thing. And that's the thing that irritates me, is people take a guy who literally, like, made the NBA what it was in the 80s. Him, you know, Magic, Jordan, and Bird were the three guys that you tuned in to watch basketball on. Especially when Larry was playing Magic, or Larry was playing Jordan, or Jordan was playing Magic, or vice versa. Like, those were the guys. Those were the guys that put the NBA on the fucking map. And we act like one of those three guys is just like a fucking plumber because he's white and unathletic, but like he was still one of the best passers in the NBA, one of the best rebounders, one of the best scorers. Okay, defensively, yeah, he could lock down a little bit. He was a three-time all-defensive team guy, so like, yeah, he had to play defense a little bit. And I get it, yes. Today's NBA players are way more skilled, they're way more athletic, they're way more talented, the training is better, everything is better. Like, I don't even know how much really, like, the health and all that shit is, because Larry Bird played more games than like, I think, I'm pretty positive, like, Larry Bird's played more 70-game seasons than most players in the NBA, but it's just the idea, man, like, people bring it up with LeBron, like, oh, longevity matters. Well, how come, it matters for LeBron, but it doesn't matter for Larry Bird? The guy played like 80 fucking games, like half of his career. All of a sudden, that doesn't matter? Like, I'm just tired of biased arguments, man. That's all I'm tired of. I'm tired of people, like, shitting on one of the greatest players to ever play the game because, oh, his three-point percentage sucked, or his playoff numbers are not that great. Like, bro, this man's rookie year, the three-point line was implemented. Like, meaning he didn't shoot him in high school, didn't shoot him in middle school. Like, literally his rookie fucking year, they were like, hey, three-point line. And then people want to be like, oh, well, his three-point numbers aren't that impressive. Like, bro, the motherfuckers in the NBA, JJ Redick and Kyle Korver and Steph Curry and Klay Thompson and Ray Allen and all these guys that you compare them to, they have been shooting three-pointers their entire lives. They have been shooting three-pointers since high school. Since probably fucking grade school in some instances. I mean, it's just like, you know what, man? I get everybody has their own opinion, but it's just the idea that a lot of people pose their own opinions with insane biases to them. So, anyway, hope you guys enjoyed the video. I didn't plan on making a video tonight, but a like helps me out. Subscribe if you guys want to see more on the Fast Break Report, and I'm out of this motherfucker. Peace, guys.